Let's go ahead and make the second cup. So first of all, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to add a new item like this. So basically just go to add item, create a new mesh, and once you have an empty mesh, go ahead and click it. But one thing that you could do is select the first one and just move it out of the way. So just select the first one, press W, and move it out of the way. And go back into the second one. So now we have some empty room to work with. And what you could do is you could just go ahead and find, go to the basic menu, or you could go into the polygon menu, or of course you could go into geometry, draw, and pen. So what we're after is the pen tool. Now, before you actually go ahead and use it, what you might want to do is you might want to change the view from perspective to something like front. And once you're here, you could begin drawing whatever it is that you want to draw. Now, we want to draw a cross section for this cup. Now, before I move on with this tool, I'm just going to expand the tool properties up like that. Just hover over until you see these two arrows on your cursor. Just move it up until you see the pen snap, and yeah. Now, in order for this pen snap to work, you actually have to go into this area here and turn on snapping. And this will enable the snapping over here. And of course, this will make it easier for you to draw straight lines. Now, what you'll notice is that when I can draw anywhere, more or less, but once I reach a certain angle, it's just going to snap like this to a straight line. Now, for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw very simple lines like this. And then I'm going to go ahead and refine what I have. So I'm still using those snap options until, like I said, until I have something like this. Now let me just go, just for now into perspective. And one thing you'll notice is that this is a perfectly flat polygon, and this is perfectly, it's exactly what we want. Let's click on the perspective again. Let's go back to front. And let's go ahead and add a little bit more geometry in here so it looks a little bit nicer. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn off snap. So snap enable, turn off. And let's move some of these across. So once you select whatever point that you want, you can then go ahead and add more points after that one point. Very useful to know. Now, one thing that you will notice is that after I use this tool, you'll notice that once I get out of this tool, there might be some, well, you'll see what's going to happen. But you might get some stuff that you will not like. Just trying to make sure that these lines are straight as much as they can be. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the cleaner it is, the better. Okay, so just something like that. Now, next up, what I want to do is I want to go back into perspective, and sometimes what can happen is this polygon can be broken. So what can happen sometimes is some of these vertices could be misaligned. Now let me just go ahead and exit this pen tool by pressing Q. And again, one thing that could happen is after you have drawn the initial shape using the snap tools, and then you go ahead and add the vertices after, before you drop the tool. So one thing that you should know is that I drew the initial first few points, and then I started drawing the new points after. I didn't press any modifiers, I didn't do anything else. All I did was I just selected the point and then started clicking to create new points after that one. That's all I did. But I did before I dropped the tool. So the whole time I had the tool active. So I was turning on snap off, on and off, and and I was adding points, but I never dropped the tool during that session. So anyways, sometimes what could happen is you might get points that are off like this. You might get some really ugly results. So it might look fine from this point of view, but as soon as you go and look at this object, you might get something like this. It's a very simple fix. All you have to do is just go to vertex, edge, or whatever selection, doesn't matter. Select everything, go to origin in your action center, and then if you go to scale by pressing R, you can then very easily snap it all to 0. And at the same time, you want to make sure that these two vertices are also snapped to 0 on X, and that's more or less done. Next up, we're going to be using, we want to revolve this object, so let's go down into, you know what, let me just shrink or move down the tool properties so that we see the entire toolbar. Let me go to duplicate, radial sweep, and let me just sweep this object around. So start angle should be 0, end angle should be 360, and axis should be Y in this case. Now, one thing, honestly, I really don't like this tool that much inside of Modo, and it's mostly because of the fact that it doesn't really work as it should. You'll notice that I can move my axis, but it's not set to origin as I said it before. Notice it's been disabled. So now what I have to do is I have to eyeball it. So let me just go ahead and go into change my perspective to top. And here you'll notice that I have a few options. I can try to move this tool, except it's going to grab the axes like this. It always grabs the axis from the top. So after that's been done, I can go ahead and use the center. I can click on it, and I can try to move it towards, where I'm gonna have to guess where the whatchamacallit is, where the origin is. Of course, this really should be set to 1. But another way to make this easier is if you go ahead and change whatever you have here, whatever shaded model you have, to wireframe, you'll notice that now I can align this with the grid with these bold black lines. So I'm just going to move it down until it is more or less aligned. And then I can go to axis and I can zero out X and zero out Z. And now if I go back into advanced OpenGL and I go to perspective, I should get something like this. I don't know if I'd call that a great solution, but it works. Anyways, once this is done, go ahead and press Q to drop that tool. Then you're going to be left with, you might want to go to polygons, and you're going to be left with a bunch of geometry in the middle. So go ahead and delete that by pressing either delete or backspace. I usually just go to delete. And try to press tab and then tab out. See what's going on with the geometry here. And you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and just double click on this object. And I'm going to go into vertex. And you know what? I'm just going to go to merge. And of course, that didn't really give me the result I wanted. So I'm just going to go to vertices. And it tells you that there's 9 vertices there. So join averaged. So that cleans that part up. And if I just left click across here, you'll notice that once again, it's telling me that there's 9 vertices over here in the corner of the viewport. Join averaged will fix that. And now you have a nice clean result. Okay, so that's done. Go into the top view. And next up, we're going to rotate this slightly up until the normals are facing in each quadrant. And you can pretty much do the same thing that you did with the other object. So let's go ahead and middle click across this object. If I go to, again, front view, middle click and go up like that. And like that. And first thing we notice is that this cup is a little thinner than the other one. So let's go ahead and just select it from the top view and then go to scale. So press R. Scale it up a little bit. And that looks more or less correct. Now, if you select the center and then press Shift up, and then press R again, and then use the scale handle, but you again want to use the green one here, the green plane, we're going to make the cup a little thicker. I think that's about right. And then press Q and deselect whatever you had there. Now you could just play around and press tab, see how you like this geometry. If you don't like it, add a little bit more. If you do like it, you can continue on. Now we're going to be making the handles now, and there's a number of ways that we could do this. So you know what? Again, there's a few ways that we could make the handle. One of which is we could go back into the pen tool, so basic pen or polygon pen, either one will work. Go into a front view, and from here we could go ahead and just start drawing out what it is that we're after. Now there's multiple ways that we could draw this. If I undo all of this and I go ahead and go to wall mode, inner, outer, both sides, whichever one you like. Let me just make some sort of offset. What I could do is I could very easily draw out the ear this way, or the handle. And it works just like the previous pen mode, where if I click anywhere in here, I can click between these 2 points and I can create a new subdivision. And I could just keep tweaking this shape until I get something that I like. Oops. Now, this doesn't have to be perfect because, again, once I'm done, I will tweak the points manually anyways. And you know what? Let's tweak the offset. As you can see, while the tool is still active, I can go into the tool properties in this section, and I could change the radius or offset to something that I like. And I think this will do just fine. And then I can drop the tool. Now, once this tool has been dropped, I can then go ahead and just use middle click and change some of the geometry until I'm satisfied. And I think this will do just fine. So let me just go out of the front view and into perspective. We have something like this. Let me just select all these polygons and use the, well, I guess I don't see it here, but let me just go to basic, extrude, and let me extrude that over like so. So we have a basic extrusion, but if we look at this object from the top, you'll notice that it's not centered around this object. So let me just double click on that and move it over manually. Or you could just go to top view and try to make sure that the normals that are sticking out or the handle is aligned with this bold line, a black line here. Now I eyeballed it, I got lucky, but as you can see, it was perfectly moved into position. And of course, once that's done, you just go to perspective, drop the tool. Now we're going to need to connect this handle to the actual body. So let me just go into edge mode and let me select a number of edges here and use loop slice. So we've used this before, mesh edit, loop slice. And as we've done before, I can now, once this tool is active, I actually don't need to drop loop slice in order to add, or in order for me to go to the next tool. I could easily just go ahead and just go into bevel straight away. And all I'm doing is just double clicking to select the edge, moving it up, using bevel, moving both bevels down, and now I can go to polygon mode. I can select this polygon and that polygon and use the duplicate bridge tool. And right now I have too many divisions here. So let me go to segments or the tool properties and let me go to segments 0 or 1 and that will do. So bridge is nice for bridging the gap between two polygons. Just remember that bridge will only work on the same item. So if you have your previous cup and you have your new cup, remember that if I have this handle on its own and this cup on its own, and they are two separate items, that I will not be able to bridge between them. So just know that limitation. Now I want to select this and I want to move it on this plane. So I have to select this blue thing here. If I rotate around, it pretty much makes sense. I want to move this along this plane here. I'm looking for this to have a nice round angle. And now if I press tab and go to here and just turn off the wireframe and visibility options do not show vertices, you'll notice now we have another cup. Now there's still more ways to create these handles, and you know what, I'm not going to recreate the cup anymore because I've already shown you that there's more than one way to create this, but I'm just going to show you another way that you could have taken to create this ear or handle. If you go back to item, let's make a new item and let's create a bunch of handles in here. Now let's go to front once again. Another way that you could have done this is if you go back to let me just go into, I guess polygon will do. And you know what? You need something to start off with, so let me just go into box and let me just create something small. So hopefully by now you know how to create a box. All I did was I pressed Control and I left clicked on the cube. And now I'm going to select this polygon here, and I'm going to use the polygon sketch extrude. And I'm going to go ahead and just extrude something out. Now notice how easy this is. All I did was I clicked on sketch extrude, I clicked in the viewport, and now you see this blue square. So all I did was I just dragged it along and made a path. Now I could also increase or decrease the precision. So let me decrease the precision. And you'll notice that there's a lot more segments, or I could increase the precision. And you'll notice that there's a lot less of these points. It almost works the other way around. I mean, I almost expected for there to be less precision, I'd be almost expecting less points and more precision, more points, but anyways. Now, if you do this, you also have the option of scaling, so I can scale this down. It's great for making spikes on characters and stuff like that. Or, of course, spin. So usually that works better if you just scale and spin by some small value. So you can have this kind of effect if I try to spin. Now in my case, I want to make sure that scale is 100. And now that that's done, I can just easily select this whole thing and scale it down like that, and we have yet another handle. Now granted, I would probably still want to tweak this to my liking, but for now, just know that there was another way to create this. Let me just go ahead and go into the front view again and go to basic, and once again press Control and left click to create another cube. Double click on a cube, move it into location, and then use the center circle on the scale handle to get that effect. And of course, the other way that you could have done it, I mean, there's so many ways. Again, like you could use pen, you could just use a regular bevel. You could just bevel, rotate, move, bevel, rotate, move, bevel, whoops, rotate, bevel, rotate. Now this is probably one of the slower ways, but it works nonetheless. I mean, if that's what suits you, then go ahead and use it. There's nothing wrong with this method. And what else? I think that's really it. I mean, another way you could have done it, and I do this method sometimes, and I think I've done it for the other cup, is if I just go ahead and just create a cube, center it down, clone that just once, move that over and select those polygons, what I could do is I could just use the bridge function to get something like that. So again, there's so many different ways to model stuff inside of Modo and all these other applications that really there's no one way that's absolutely perfect. As you've noticed, there was multiple approaches I could have taken to modeling the handle. There's multiple ways of creating the cups, and every object that I'm going to be creating, there's really a lot of ways that you could create these. So anyways, as far as the cups are concerned, I'm done. Yeah, cheers. Now I thought that I would actually extend the chapter slightly and basically ask you guys to try to come up with other ways to create a cup. Try to explore a few other tools inside of Modo's tool set, and just try to come up with different ways of modeling that cup, and maybe post it on my forum or maybe on luxology.com, on their forum, and try to find different ways to create a cup. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to force you to find different ways to use the same tool set, or a different tool set, or maybe just use the same tools that I've shown you, but in slightly different ways. And it's really going to get the creative juices going, because now you're going to be exploring and you're going to be thinking of how I can use these tools to my advantage, and not necessarily just how I've shown you. So with that said, now the chapter's done. Haha, cheers.